Reverend Johnny Green, one of the preeminent pastors of our nation, pastor of this church. Reverend Patrick Young, and Bishop Herbert Daughtry. And to all of our elected officials and others, but more than any, to the family, the father, the grand aunt, and others that have come. Let me say, as I begin, that we should not celebrate Jordan's life, but we should not ignore how he died. This funeral was not on the schedule. We're not here because of natural causes. We're here because of unnatural policies. And I don't care who sits high until we address these policies. We will have to deal with Zachary and Mildred's mourning their loved one a long time. That's right. Book of St. Matthew's, 25th chapter, 35th verse said, I was hungry and you brought me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. Why did I select that scripture? Because there has been, since Jordan's death, a distortion of values that we need to make clear that has been violated. When I first got the call about Jordan and later talked with Johnny Green, who is pastor here, and Johnny Green told me of how Jordan's mother was killed. And her funeral was right here. And Jordan sat right there and watched his mother funeralized, who'd been chopped up. And he'd never been the same. Jordan was not annoying someone on the train. Jordan was screaming for help. We keep criminalizing people with mental illness. People keep criminalizing people that need help. They don't need abuse, they need help. That is why I chose this scripture. Jesus said, I was hungry and you fed me. I was outdoors, you took me in. These are the principles you claim to live by. I heard Reverend Green, and I have to, as a minister, deal with this. I heard the governor of Florida, DeSantis, say that the man that killed Jordan was a Good Samaritan. Well, and they raised over $2 million for this man. Well, I know, Governor DeSantis, that you putting black history and LGBTQ and Latino out of the school. But I have a Bible to put in the governor's office. Because apparently you don't know what the Good Samaritan was. Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan. He said there was a man beaten and robbed, Aunt Mildred, and put by the side of the road. One man walked by that was of his same race and ignored him, and he kept walking. Another came that was holy, sanctified, full of piety, but he kept walking. Then came a man from another race who was a Samaritan, and Jesus said he stopped to help the man, and Jesus called him a Good Samaritan. A Good Samaritan helped those in trouble. They don't choke them out. What happened to Jordan was a crime. And this family shouldn't have to stand by themselves. These lawyers, Lennon Edwards and Dante, shouldn't have to stand by themselves. Because when they choked Jordan, they put their arms around all of us. All of us have the right to live. I was traveling and I watched the news, and I was telling Bishop Daughtry, who I grew up mentored by him. I was Jesse Jackson's youth director and his youth director since I was 12. That's right. And I was telling him that I remember in the late 80s, they killed a young black man in Howard Beach named Michael Griffin. And they ignored us. So we called a day outrage, and I jumped on the tracks, and we jumped and blocked the trains, and they gave me 45 days in jail. I hope y'all that jumped on the tracks, they don't give you all the time I got. But what bothered me as one that has done that and will do it some more if I have to, is that they said they were looking for the other folk that jumped on the track, Senator Claire. What about looking for who let this guy go from the precinct? I want to know why they let him go after he killed an unarmed man that hadn't threatened anybody. Nobody hurt nobody jumping on the tracks. There was no violence in the protest. The violence is when you choked Jordan to death. You chasing the wrong people. You looking for the wrong people. Let me get this right. A boy is on the train screaming for help. May disturb you, may annoy you. A guy comes up from behind. Now, Lennon Edwards is smarter than me. Maybe he can explain it to me. How does somebody come up from behind and claim self-defense? He wasn't even in front. Behind, there was no weapons. There was no language. Nobody was threatened. And you grab him and put him in a chokehold. Two people hold him down. And you go to the precinct and they let you go. If Jordan was impersonating Elvis Presley, if Jordan had been a different race and they had him impersonating Elvis, and a black guy put Elvis impersonator in a chokehold, and two black guys held him down they would not have let that black guy leave the precinct that night. Zachary and Mildred and the family are not asking for favors. They want justice. Do what you would do for anybody else, and until you do, we're going to stand with this family. They shouldn't have to stand up for themselves. Mildred told me on the phone, then I talked to the father, how Jordan impersonated Michael Jackson. Zachary told me he loved Michael. And many of you know I preached Michael's funeral. I committed Michael's body to his grave. He's come up to the House of Justice here in Harlem, worked National Action Network. That's why I was glad my dance partners here, AOC, me and her danced and went viral in her office. Give her a hand. She stood up for Jordan. Despite whatever mental challenges he may have had, he wanted to be something. He didn't want to be a drug dealer. He wanted to be Michael Jackson. He didn't want to be a thief or a crook. He wanted to be Michael Jackson. He wasn't trying to be something negative. He wanted to be like Michael, that made the world smile and get on one beat. You didn't have the right to snatch the life out of this young man. The sad part about it, the sick part about it, is that he'd been choked much of his life. The agencies that failed to keep him and give him mental health choked Jordan. Those that let him go, even though they had his record of needing help, they choked Jordan. The city agencies choked Jordan. He's been choked most of his adult life. He's an example of how you're choking the homeless, how you're choking the mentally ill, how you're choking all over this city. And we come to say this choking gotta stop. There must be, Jamani Williams, sound policy on the homeless, sound policy on the mentally ill, sound policy on how we deal with them. All of us have family members with mental illness. And something I'll never forget Zachary told me about his son, is that he wasn't homeless, he was houseless. Because he had homes he could go to. He'd go to Aunt Mildred's and eat. He'd go and talk to his family. There's a difference between houseless and homeless. We come from good families. We come from people that love us. But sometimes things happen that drives us in the street. Don't look down on us. If you look down, only look down to lift us up. This jaded theology of the Good Samaritan, this jaded theology, how do you condemn folks coming to a country you invite them to and don't teach and don't treat the ones that built the country right that's already here? God challenged me the other day about Lieutenant Governor Delgado talking about immigration policy. I said, it was hard for me to be against refugees. We've got to figure it out. But how do you preach against refugees and then talk about Jesus? The Bible tells me that an angel told Joseph to get the mother Mary and the baby Jesus and flee to Egypt because there's genocide getting ready to happen. And Jesus went to Egypt in North Africa and grew up in refuge, which made Jesus a refugee. You quote scriptures that you don't believe in. You preach doctrines that you don't live by. You hang up on the agencies of the city titles, but you don't have the function. You're not looking out for those mentally ill. You're not looking out for the homeless. You are somewhere with a big title and no function. And in the name of Jordan, we're going to turn this city around to serve the homeless. Jordan, I didn't know you, Jordan. I know your aunt, and I've talked to your daddy. And one thing I promise is in your name, we're going to change how they deal with homelessness. In your name, we're going to change how they deal with the mentally ill. In your name, we're going to change services in this city. Jordan, you didn't die for nothing. What they meant for bad, we'll make good. We're going to have a new city and new city services. Maybe it is time for the people to get up and stand up and hold us accountable. The mayor says we need to summit. Yeah, well, you can't summit without the Neely family. You can't summit without the advocates that's been advocating all along. You can't summit without Attorney Edwards. We got, yes, to have a summit of new policies, but they got to be enforced. We also need, and I'll take my seat, we need to also know who, you know, right after it happened, I jumped out and AOC jumped out and others and said, this is wrong, this man ought to be arrested. And they ought to bring before the grand jury the two guys that held him down. And just as me now, I'm not speaking for nobody but me. I want to know who decided at the precinct to let this guy go home. I want to know who called the order that it was all right for this man to choke this brother to death and go home and sleep in his bed. Who gave the order that it was all right to release him? We can't live in a city where you can choke me to death with no provocation, no weapon, no threat, and you go home and sleep in your bed while my family got to put me in a cemetery. There must be equal justice under the law. So if we look angry, we are. But we're not mad. You're between going mad and being angry. Yes, we're angry. Because we're at another funeral we shouldn't have had to be at. Yes, we're angry. Because you see our children as objects rather than human. Yes, we're angry. Because you keep choking us to death rather than living and building us up. And we won't stop till we change this nation. We won't stop till we change this city. We won't stop until the Jordans get help. When they scream, we're going to help them, not choke them. We're going to stand up. There'll be no justice. There'll be no peace.